3 springs in a row. That is how long I sprayed Weed B-Gon on the same patch of clover in my front yard. Bright orange bottle, $18 a pop. By the 3rd year, I was buying 2 bottles at once because I assumed I wasn't using enough. I watched the clover go a little pale for about a week, thought maybe it was finally breaking, and then it came back. Greener, fuller, spreading into the turf on the edges. I genuinely believed I was doing something wrong. I wasn't. The product has a documented failure mode on clover that is not in the advertising. The company that makes it knows this, because they wrote it on the label. I didn't read that label. Most people don't. And by the time I did, I had spent over $50 on a product whose own instructions told me in plain language to stop buying it. Today I'm going to show you what actually kills clover, why it works on a biological level, the exact mixing ratio and coverage rate, the one mistake that will kill the grass underneath it instead, and what you have to do the moment the clover dies, because that bare patch is the next problem, and most people completely miss the window. Stay with me. The product most of you are reaching for is Weed B-Gon Lawn Weed Killer. Bright orange bottle. Front shelf at Home Depot, Lowe's, and Walmart. Usually right next to the Scott's bags, so you can't miss it. Ortho is a brand owned by Scott's Miracle-Gro, a $3.8 billion corporation that also owns Roundup Consumer, Miracle-Gro, Tomcat, and most of the other recognizable names in the lawn and garden aisle. The active ingredients in Weed B-Gon are 2,4-D, mecoprop, and dicamba. These are broadleaf herbicides developed from compounds first synthesized during World War II. Scott's was among the first companies to commercialize them for residential lawns, launching its first broadleaf product, 4-XD, in 1945. Clover is a broadleaf plant, so by the label's own logic, Weed B-Gon should kill it. Here's the problem. Clover leaves have a waxy, water-resistant surface. Herbicide solution beads off that surface and runs to the soil. Weed B-Gon's formulation does not contain enough surfactant to reliably wet clover foliage. And if the product cannot penetrate the leaf, the active ingredients never reach the plant tissue that matters. Now here is the part I want you to actually verify after this video. Go to the EPA website and pull up the official Weed B-Gon product label. It is a public document, free, right there. Read the application instructions section. There is a line in there that reads, and I am quoting closely, "If control failure occurs following a full or split application, do not reapply this product. Change to a herbicide with a different mode of action." That is not in the fine print. That is in the standard application instructions. The product's own label tells you in writing that if it doesn't work on your clover, stop buying it. That sentence exists on a product that is actively advertised to you as the solution to your clover problem. I sat with that for a while when I finally found it. I'm still a little annoyed. Before I give you the fix, I want to give you context that I think completely changes how you're supposed to feel about having clover in your lawn. My neighbor Dennis, retired, grows tomatoes, has the best fescue on the block, told me something a few years ago that I did not take seriously at the time. He said his father used to buy grass seed at the hardware store, and half of it was always clover. On purpose. I thought he was misremembering. He wasn't. For more than 150 years, white clover was a standard ingredient in American grass seed mixes. Not accidental contamination. Intentional. Turf managers mixed it in deliberately because clover is a nitrogen-fixing plant. It pulls nitrogen from the air and converts it into a plant-available form in the soil. That is free fertilizer going into your lawn every single growing season. No bag, no spreader, no application schedule. The surrounding grass gets fed automatically. Clover also stays green in drought conditions when grass goes dormant. It fills in bare patches on its own. It was considered an asset. There was no war on clover. Nobody was trying to remove it. After World War II, broadleaf herbicides became commercially available. And here's the problem Scott's ran into. 2,4-D kills all broadleaf plants, including clover. So when homeowners began using Scott's broadleaf herbicides on their lawns, the clover died along with everything else. Which meant a common, intentionally seeded, beneficial lawn plant was now visibly dying from the use of the product. That created a perception problem. Scott's had a choice. They could market the herbicide narrowly, for the weeds people actually hated, like ground ivy, wild violet, thistle, and acknowledged that it would also remove the clover that homeowners had been intentionally seeding for generations. Or they could reclassify clover, turn the asset into the problem, sell the herbicide as the solution to a problem they had just created. They chose the second option. Published lawn history research cited by Beyond Pesticides documents that through aggressive marketing and advertising campaigns throughout the 1950s, white clover went from a standard, desirable lawn ingredient to a lawn pest. Not because of any change in agronomy, not because clover became more invasive or more aggressive, because a corporation that manufactured broadleaf herbicides needed a target audience, and the most efficient way to create one was to decide that something beneficial was actually a weed. A homeowner who grows clover intentionally never buys a clover herbicide. A homeowner who believes his lawn is dirty because it has clover in it spends $18 on Weed B-Gon every spring, and then $36 when the first bottle doesn't work. This is not a conspiracy theory. The mechanism is documented, the history is documented, and most of us have been operating inside it for decades. Dennis's father knew what clover actually was. Somewhere between his generation and mine, we forgot. The product that reliably kills clover costs $5 and is sitting in the laundry aisle of every grocery store in America right now. It is called 20 Mule Team Borax, yellow box. You have walked past it 100 times. The reason it works comes down to one element: boron. Borax is sodium tetraborate, and it is roughly 11% boron by weight. Plants need boron in trace amounts to function. Clovers and other legumes need it specifically for the root nodules responsible for nitrogen fixation. Boron is what makes those nodules operate. When you apply borax at the right concentration, you are flooding the clover's root system with more boron than it can process. The nitrogen-fixing machinery shuts down. Cellular processes begin failing. The plant goes yellow, then brown, then dead. The full timeline is 10 days to 2 weeks. Not overnight, but steady and reliable. Here is what makes borax effective on clover without destroying the lawn underneath it. Turf grasses, Kentucky bluegrass, fescue, perennial ryegrass, are significantly less sensitive to boron than broadleaf legumes. At the correct application rate, the grass beneath the clover takes minimal stress and recovers completely. The clover dies. The grass lives. U.S. Borax, the agricultural division of one of the largest borax producers in the country, publishes crop-specific technical guides confirming that clovers are among the most boron-sensitive plants because of the critical role boron plays in their nitrogen fixation biology. The same property that made clover agriculturally useful, the nitrogen-fixing root system, is exactly what makes borax effective against it. Here is the mixing ratio, and I'm going to be exact. 3.5 cups of 20 Mule Team Borax, 1 gallon of warm water. Stir until the borax is fully dissolved. It takes a minute, don't rush it. That 1 gallon of solution covers 1,000 square feet of lawn. Measure your clover area before you mix anything. If you have 500 square feet of clover, you are mixing half a gallon of solution. If it's a full 1,000 square feet, you mix the full gallon. Do not eyeball coverage. Do not assume extra concentration works faster or more thoroughly. Here is what extra concentration actually does. It pushes the boron level in the soil past the tolerance threshold for the grass, not just for the clover. The clover dies, and then the grass starts going yellow. And at that point, the boron is in the soil and you are waiting it out. That is a slow, frustrating recovery window, and it is entirely avoidable if you measure. Equipment. A standard pump garden sprayer, calibrated to a medium spray pattern. Not a fine mist, too much drift, uneven coverage. Not a heavy soak, you're not trying to drench the soil, you're targeting the plant. Even coverage across the clover leaves. The boron enters through the foliage first and moves into the root system from there. Timing. Late spring or early summer, when the clover is actively growing. Apply in the morning or late afternoon, not midday heat. Do not apply if rain is forecast within 24 hours. The solution needs time to dry on the leaf surface and absorb before water washes it away. Then you wait. 10 days minimum. The clover will go yellow in the first week. brown and collapsing by day 10. It looks like it's moving slowly. It is not. The boron is working through the root system. The visible die-off catches up to it. The most common mistake I hear about in the comments is this. Someone sprays once, sees nothing dramatic after 2 or 3 days, and sprays again. They just doubled the boron load in the soil. The grass goes yellow. They blame the borax. The borax is not the problem. The second application is. 1 application per season. That is the rule. Boron does not break down in soil the way conventional herbicides do. If patches survive into the following spring, you measure those patches specifically. Mix to cover only that area and apply once. 1 application. Safety is straightforward. Borax is low toxicity. Keep pets and kids off the treated area until the spray has fully dried, typically 2 to 3 hours. Wash out your sprayer after use. Now the part most people skip and regret a month later. The clover is dead. You have open soil in your lawn. If you leave it alone, something moves in. It always does. In most lawns, within 3 to 4 weeks of the clover dying, you are looking at crabgrass or a new clover patch establishing from seed that was already dormant in the soil. You traded one problem for the same problem, or a worse one. Here is what to do before that happens. First, understand what just changed in the soil chemistry. Clover was actively fixing nitrogen into that area the entire time it was alive. When it dies, that nitrogen input stops. The surrounding grass at the edges of the patch is no longer receiving that free input. Replace it immediately. Hit the bare patch with a starter fertilizer, something with a balanced nitrogen and phosphorus profile designed for seedling establishment. A 2400 or a standard starter blend works fine. Then overseed immediately with a perennial ryegrass or turf-type tall fescue matched to your region and climate zone. The soil left behind by dead clover roots is loose and workable. Better seedbed conditions than most bare patches you will ever try to fill. The seed establishes quickly in that soil. Take advantage of it. Get the seed down within 1 week of the clover dying. Water lightly every day until it establishes. That window does not stay open long. One last thing, because I cannot let it go. Scott's Miracle-Gro now sells a clover lawn product. It is called Scott's Turf Builder Clover Lawn Seed, and it is on the shelf at Home Depot right now. The same corporation that spent roughly 70 years telling you clover in your lawn was a problem, that your neighbors were judging you for it, that you needed to buy herbicide every spring to deal with it, now sells you clover seed to put it back into that same lawn. When I found that, I couldn't decide if I was amused or genuinely angry. I think I landed somewhere between both. But I also think that knowing this history makes you a meaningfully better steward of your own lawn than the label on the orange bottle ever intended you to be. Dennis's father knew. Now you know.